Let's talk about the Clash. The Bowman Gray Stadium race that we just experienced this evening. I am just got in the door from getting home after watching the race at my parents' place, and it was a race, maybe more like a demo derby. I mean, it was an event, and I have some thoughts on it, and we're gonna go over that today. We're gonna go over the idiot of the day. We're gonna go over driver of the day in this new series that we'll be doing every week for the NASCAR season. And I'm really thankful that we have an exhibition race to kick things off. And I have quite a few thoughts about what we witnessed tonight in the Bowman Gray Stadium. Let's talk about the highlights. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to NASCAR and all the people that volunteered and the track workers to actually making this event that was delayed by 3 days actually happen, first of all, and it didn't come without its issues throughout the race itself with weather as well. But I am just so glad that we have such a great NASCAR community that was able to even bring us this race in the first place. And the highlight really for me was honestly the last chance qualifying race. As usual, that was the highlight for me last year. It was the same way again this year. We had some tire fall off. Of course, we had the increase to 750 horsepower this weekend that we will see at all short tracks, road courses as well, tracks that are below as well, just a mile and a half. And I think that it was really too hard to tell if it made a difference tonight because of all the chaos that we saw. But in the LCQ, we saw some tire fall off. We had some comers and some goers as well. We had Josh Berry dominate the entirety of it, but we had one heck of a battle for the second and final transfer spot between Austin Cindric, AJ Allmendinger as well, and who was the other one that was in that battle? Corey LaJoie in the number 6. A big shout out to him hopping in that car on relatively short notice and put together a really competitive effort. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Clash. And I leave the race, if it was an points race, I would be a lot more angry with what I just watched, but it was an exhibition race. It's about having fun, and there was points in the race that I really wasn't having fun watching at some points, but overall it's a fun exhibition race, and I'm going to kind of bring my points for the race down a little bit in terms of expectation, because there's no points quite literally on the line. There's nothing on the line except bragging rights and a bit of money incentive as well. And we'll start with just the highlights of this race before I really get into the meat of it and start grilling people. Ryan Preece, shout out to Ryan Preece picking up a win, his first win for RFK. Of course, not an official Cup Series win. He won't be scored as a one-time Cup Series winner, but he's still starting off the season with a bit of momentum, and just a really, really good staple for Ryan Preece, improving himself at the top level of the Cup Series. And I was one of the people that doubted him significantly in his previous resume in the Cup Series, and I was very surprised when RFK signed him. I didn't think he was going to do much, and he proved me wrong last season, and he's very well continued to do that, obviously, to start this season. He put on a great race. His car was super strong. He even went from getting spun around, of course, in the wet part of the race, and coming back in and picking up the W. So a huge shout out to Ryan Preece. And I think that's really all the highlights I have of what's really good to say. I mean, the racing, the tires were falling off in the first 100 laps. Kyle Larson started on pole. We saw him kind of use up his tires a little bit. He faded all the way back to about 9th or 10th place when the caution came out at the end of lap 100 for the halfway point. And we saw a bit of comers and goers, not as much as I would have preferred. And of course, it's really difficult still to pass, even with the horsepower adjustment. And on top of that, of course, just with the short track package, it still needs work, I think, with just everything around the car. The tires, Goodyear, they can only do so much, but passing was still a little bit difficult. You just had to bulldoze a guy out of your way if you're going to be able to pass him here tonight. Now, when the rain came, it got a little bit different in terms of passability, but then, of course, we saw this race take a bit of a different direction.
Hamlin slides into the 5, and around he goes. Josh Berry got into the wall, and he is looking to exit. He has stopped, and around goes Dillon.
I promise you that aggression from Briscoe.
Logano is tied up there with Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott, and we're under caution with a new leader, Ryan Preece. Zilich to the inside. He gets into Gibbs. around goes Ty Gibbs. Blaney, he's back in the show. Oh, no! And Gisbergen around. Oh, heavy damage to Bubba Wallace. Oh,
Finished it.
in the middle of the straightaway.
Oh.
4 wide.
Yeah, that never works here.
I think the 54 car saw that 8 car in trouble and was
Like I said, I'm going to be a little bit nicer because this was an exhibition race, but that was a pretty embarrassing display of our sport once the rain started coming down. And in my personal opinion, it wasn't rain that was the problem. These drivers are, as we call them, world-class drivers. I saw a lot of people saying, well, the rain is what made this race go, so wrong. And I'm like, well, if you're going to claim that NASCAR drivers are top-tier world-class drivers and they cannot keep from bulldozing each other in light, wet conditions, we are giving them way too much credit as drivers at this point. They put on an absolute stinker, but at the same time, because it was an exhibition race, I actually kind of had some fun watching it for the first part until we had hit a point where we were over 100 laps under yellow and none of those laps counted. It got pretty excruciating to watch at one point. Me and my dad were sitting there just like, oh my goodness, like, is this ever going to end? But yeah, I mean, it just got to a point where, after the first 100 laps, I'll be honest, I was like, is anything going to happen in this race? There really wasn't a whole lot going on. And then we get into the rain coming, and NASCAR, of course, puts the wet tires on, and we go racing, and the conditions, as Kevin Harvick had mentioned, were perfect for the wet tire that NASCAR has. And all we saw on the first couple of restarts, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. The first restart, we saw chaos and Denny Hamlin going around, Kyle Larson and a few others getting involved, and I'm like, okay, of course, everyone's just kind of trying to get a feel for the grip levels and whatnot, and we saw some drivers really shine that we expected to see shine. Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zilisch, of course, who really, I mean, other than a poor finish, both him and Van Gisbergen put a very, very strong performances up on the board. We even saw SVG leading a bunch of laps as well until Chase Briscoe, I don't know, I think he just forgot how to drive. I'm not sure what was that about, but I even gave Carson Hocevar some crap because on a restart in the rain, I mean, he just drove straight through the 19 and forced him to lift, otherwise he was going to crash. And I was just like, okay, is that how we're racing now? But I mean, that was actually pretty tame compared to what was coming next. So it got to a point where people were just bulldozing each other on these restarts into the corners. They weren't trying to slow down. No, they're just using the guy in front of them to slow down, and that creates the accordion effect, and it creates these crashes, and the cautions keep coming not because the track is wet, because the drivers keep bulldozing into the corner. Some people are blaming NASCAR for this stuff. No, NASCAR is not the one driving the cars into the back of the car in front of them to use them as the brake pedal. That was 100% on the drivers, and I cannot stress enough how much they embarrass themselves at some point throughout this race, because we all know, if you're here, I know, they are way more capable of that in any weather condition, and I was pretty disappointed in that aspect. And like I said, the first part, it was actually kind of fun watching them, work around the racetrack, trying to find, some more water to keep those tires cool, and then just, the fastest way around the track, moved up the racetrack towards the wall. And that was a lot of fun to watch. We did get a little bit of a green flag run at one point, and then we kind of got into a bit more chaos. And even as the track was drying up towards the end, we still had the same situation of drivers just bulldozing off into the corner on restarts, and that completely proves the point that, in fact, the wet weather was not the issue to begin with. We had the fuel debacle as well, which I don't think anybody saw coming. I didn't see coming, but I don't think anyone had planned on running 100 plus laps under caution in this race. And of course, like we said earlier, those caution laps do not count. And we're going to bring in my dad's question of the day for you guys to comment down below. He was wondering, of course, we saw Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott both run out of fuel and bring out cautions, and then they had to go to the back. They even went more than a lap down. Of course, they had to come in and they had to get fuel. Now, we eventually saw NASCAR on a caution demand everybody into the pit lane to get fuel, and they did not allow Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, who had already gotten fuel, to cycle to the front because they didn't even need to pit at that point. They forced them to start at the back. My dad was wondering if you guys think that was fair or not. For me, I don't know. I felt like we kind of lost the plot of the race at that point, so I didn't really care what was going on anymore. But yeah, I kind of felt like, you know, Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott kind of got done dirty a little bit by the fact that they ran out of fuel, brought out the cautions, and then NASCAR eventually just let everybody get a free pit stop and fill it up on fuel anyways, and the 5 and the 9 still had to start behind those guys. I can see both sides to it, but yeah, just let me know your opinions down below. Now, at the end of the race, everyone kind of calmed down, and we got some racing to the end. The track had dried up a bit more, and we saw Ryan Preece quite simply just drive away and win the race in quite dominant fashion in that final portion. But watching him, you know, go head-to-head with Shane Van Gisbergen earlier in the race was a highlight for me as a big Shane Van Gisbergen fan, and watching SVG hold his own. Connor Zilisch looked really promising. Of course, I think it's going to be, you know, a very difficult season for Connor Zilisch, but he was certainly showing right off the bat that he was willing and ready to fight with the big dogs up there, and that's really promising to see from a Cup Series rookie. But yeah, driver of the day for me is Ryan Preece in that number 60. We're not always going to choose a race winner for driver of the day, but we are today, because he went from spinning in the rain to, you know, battling through the adversity and getting himself into position to, you know, hang on and hold off, you know, some of the best of the entire series like William Byron, who of course came runner up there at the end of that race. So huge shout out to Ryan Preece, a driver that's been working so long to get into the position that he's in, and a very well-deserved victory, and hopefully he's got some more wins to come in 2026. Idiot of the Day award is going to go to just the field, 3/4 of the field at least. I mean, there's not one specific driver this weekend that we can really pinpoint as idiot of the day. You can maybe comment down below if you disagree. I mean, Daniel Suarez kind of stood out a little bit, and one of my guys, of course, Daniel Suarez. Shout out to Daniel. I love Daniel. But he kind of seemed like he was racing with a bit of a vendetta against both Connor Zilisch and SVG, almost like they were the reason he got fired, not his lack of performance at Trackhouse. But outside of that, I mean, no, I think at least 3/4 of the field are deserving of this award tonight. Just bulldozing off into these corners and just hoping, you know, that the guy in front of them is going to take the hit and slow them down, and they'll make the corner and go on through. And it was really annoying to watch them kind of with that mentality. But at the end of the day, it was an exhibition race, and we'll get to some real racing, quote unquote, as the Super Speedway in Daytona. Who knows what to expect next week? We'll have qualifying, the duels, the 500. We'll be covering a lot of it right here on the channel. We'll be live streaming as well, probably Wednesday night with Daytona 500 qualifying, watch along. The duels, will be doing a watch along stream as well. Same for the truck race and the Xfinity race all next weekend. But I won't be doing any watch alongs anytime soon for the Cup races, because I go home or to my parents' place now and I watch the Cup races with my dad, and I value that a lot. So we'll be doing a lot of watch alongs though this season, so hope you guys tune into that, and let me know your thoughts down below in the clash. Like I said, I mean, we looked like a bit of an embarrassment, but overall I still at some points wasn't having fun overall, though it still was a fun little event that I am at least ready to move on from and get to Daytona and hope that we put on a better show, especially for casual viewers. I hope there was no casual viewers for this race, because they would have came in and been like, so this is what NASCAR is about? Like, we're just wrecking each other. But yeah, let's hope for some better quality racing come next week in Daytona. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.